The cold winter wind blew through the unlatched windows, snaking its way into every corner of the empty clinic. Outside, the sky was pitch black, with only faint streetlights casting isolated reflections onto the glass. In Dr. Kirill's clinic, the usual quiet of an ordinary day was suddenly torn apart by a horrifying scene. A nurse entered, holding a patient file in her hand, her expression neutral until she caught sight of what lay ahead. Her steps halted, her body frozen. Before her was an unbelievable sight. Blood spattered across the room, staining the cold white tile floor. Every item, chairs, medical instruments, was thrown about in a hasty, chaotic fashion. Lying near the desk was a body, Dr. Kirill, his eyes wide open, devoid of life. The second body belonged to Irina, a patient struggling with infertility, whom Dr. Kirill had been treating. Both lay naked, their bodies marked with bloody wounds, as if a violent struggle had unfolded right there. The clinic's door stood open, faint light from outside casting a dim glow, accentuating the deathly stillness of the room. The air seemed frozen, filled with a chilling sense of horror. No one could understand what had happened. These two people, a doctor and a patient, why did their lives end in such a tragedy? Who was the culprit? How had they died under these circumstances? What kind of relationship had led them to such a sorrowful end? Was it betrayal, or merely a tragic accident? Questions stacked upon one another with no answers in sight. A dark mystery awaited revelation, and only when the truth was unearthed would the shadows in this complex relationship finally be illuminated. Irina was a beautiful, intelligent, and passionate Russian woman living in Moscow, a prosperous city with a stable job and what seemed like a perfect family. Yet beneath that vibrant exterior, she always felt a deep emptiness within her soul. She loved her husband, Dmitri, a successful man in the tech industry. However, that love was beginning to feel monotonous and lacking. Dmitri, a hard-working man, was constantly engrossed in his work and important projects, so much so that he failed to notice his wife's growing weariness from the loneliness within their own home. Irina yearned for attention, for shared words about her hidden worries, especially the infertility struggles she was facing. But Dmitri was oblivious to these needs. He only blamed her for not being able to conceive, never stopping to consider if he might be part of the issue. He always found ways to fault Irina but hid his own reproductive health concerns. Despite knowing the challenges they faced in having a child, Dmitri refused to get tested, unwilling to confront the truth. Irina, left to face her sadness and hurt alone, felt the connection between her and Dmitri fade more and more, and the love in their marriage became faint and cold. Kirill, Irina and Dmitri's IVF doctor, was not only an expert in his field, but also Irina's former lover, a truth that made everything more complicated. Their relationship was not just doctor and patient, it held remnants of memories that had never fully faded. The days when they had loved each other had left a deep mark on Irina's heart, one she hadn't entirely erased. Their reunion stirred mixed emotions. Initially, everything unfolded as expected, with professional conversations focused on the IVF treatment process. But gradually, within the secluded space of the clinic, accidental glances and caring inquiries began to carry an undeniable pull. Irina couldn't ignore the feeling that this connection was slowly rekindling. Each encounter reminded her that her old feelings had never truly disappeared. They had only been buried beneath layers of time and responsibility. Kirill, though maintaining a professional demeanor, could not fully hide his special concern for Irina. His caring words and helpful gestures throughout her treatment seemed, in an unconscious way, to express emotions long forgotten. And as time passed, their relationship grew increasingly ambiguous, blending old affections with new waves of emotions, stronger than ever. Irina began her IVF treatment journey without Dmitri by her side. Each time she entered the clinic alone, a sense of emptiness weighed on her, as if a vital part of her life were missing. Dmitri always had work-related excuses, leaving her to face the anxieties and loneliness of this challenging journey alone. Yet each time Irina stepped into the clinic, she sensed an unusual warmth from Kirill, her IVF doctor. He was not just a medical professional, he was someone who sincerely asked about her well-being, offering her genuine encouragement. His eyes, though professional, occasionally held a special concern that made Irina feel noticed and not entirely alone. With each appointment, their conversations grew less simple. Kirill always listened attentively as she shared her fears, her physical and emotional exhaustion, never overlooking a single detail. The warmth and gentleness in his words of encouragement gradually helped Irina open up. The quiet moments in the clinic, the fleeting glances, not only eased her pain but also fostered a deeper connection. And the more time they spent together, the more Irina noticed the difference between Kirill and Dmitri, while Dmitri, though he loved her, remained indifferent to her emotions. Kirill was always there, caring for her and sharing in her worries. The closeness between them became increasingly inevitable. Each time Irina met Kirill, she couldn't ignore a vague sense of attraction, a magnetic pull she couldn't explain. Sweet memories from their past began to resurface, and she found herself unable to stop thinking about the days they had once shared. Each glance, each gesture from Kirill reminded her of a love she had once let go, and then, in that moment, she felt she had rediscovered the warmth she had been longing for, something Dmitri had unwittingly neglected. The relationship between Irina and Kirill gradually crossed the boundaries of doctor and patient, becoming an affair that neither could resist. What seemed like simple treatment sessions became opportunities for them to grow closer. Kirill was not only Irina's healthcare provider but also the only one giving her the attention and understanding Dmitri had completely neglected. Irina felt the attraction and deep affection in every glance from Kirill, and his gentle touches during treatment made it impossible for her to ignore her feelings. One day, after a session ended and the clinic was empty, Irina could no longer suppress her desire. Kirill, with his warm smile and captivating gaze, moved closer, his hands slowly and confidently stroking her hair. Irina felt a thrill in her heart, and losing her sense of restraint, she lifted her head, letting her lips meet his. That first passionate kiss felt like a wave sweeping away all reason. No longer hurried touches, they now shared long, longing kisses, as if in that moment they truly belonged to each other. From then on, each visit to the clinic was no longer just for treatment, but also an opportunity to continue their illicit meetings. Evenings after treatment, they couldn't resist each other. Kirill would drive Irina home, and each time in the car, they couldn't keep their composure. Gentle touches on her hand, soft caresses, these were no longer mere kindnesses but signs of a heated physical relationship. Once they reached her home, they couldn't wait any longer, everything unfolding naturally and beyond control. They fell into each other with fervor, no longer doctor and patient but two lovers, fulfilling long-suppressed desires. Their bodies entwined, no longer held back, no more hesitation. Those moments weren't only about physical satisfaction, but a profound connection, both physical and emotional. In Kirill's arms, Irina felt liberated, and the loneliness and emptiness she had endured during her time with Dmitri vanished. Yet she was fully aware that this relationship was anything but simple and would bring serious consequences. However, in that moment she could not stop, could not let go. Irina felt a profound change within her body. After several months she discovered she was pregnant, but not with Dmitri, the husband she still loved. Instead, it was with Kirill, her former lover. The initial joy left her trembling, but almost instantly worry, guilt, and confusion took over her mind. How could she face Dmitri, who still blamed her for their inability to have children? How could she admit that the child she was carrying was the result of an affair with another man? Irina decided to keep this truth hidden. She continued to maintain the facade of a normal life with Dmitri, though her heart was anything but at peace. She didn't dare tell her husband, fearing he would once again distance himself, reproach her, and push her further from his life. On sleepless nights, Irina often recalled her times with Kirill, the intensity of the emotions they had once shared. She couldn't stop thinking about him, about the warmth and love he brought into her life. Each time she met Kirill, though she knew their relationship was wrong, she felt her heart race, as if drawn into an irresistible, inescapable spiral. Dmitri began to notice subtle yet unmistakable changes in Irina's behavior. She no longer showed him the warmth and affection she once did, and her secretive nighttime outings started to unsettle him. Their relationship grew colder with each passing day, and Dmitri couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something was being kept from him. One day, when Irina wasn't paying attention, he accidentally discovered a strange message on her phone. At that moment, all his suspicions came crashing into reality. A loving message from Kirill, the IVF doctor Irina often visited. This discovery struck him like a slap to the face, shattering the trust in all the justifications Dmitri had built in his mind. Dmitri felt his world collapsing around him. Every secret Irina had hidden now lay exposed before his eyes. He couldn't continue living in the shadows of doubt and lies. After countless sleepless nights and internal battles, Dmitri decided he had to confront the truth. He would demand an explanation from Irina, but not only her. Kirill, the man who had entered his life and stolen what was most precious to him, would have to face him as well. Dmitri entered the clinic, heart pounding with anxiety, but when he saw the scene before him, it was as if reality was yanked away. Irina and Kirill stood close, hands touching in a tender embrace, with gestures of intimacy that Dmitri had never received from his wife. The connection between them was unmistakably beyond a typical doctor-patient relationship. Every glance, every smile seemed to be a silent confirmation they weren't just former lovers, they were a couple. A profound sense of betrayal tore through Dmitri's heart. He couldn't believe what his eyes were seeing. Rage erupted within him, so fierce that he lost control. Blood surged through him, and he lunged forward, shouting in a frenzy, attacking them both as if to erase everything in front of him. Words of anger choked in his throat, yet his pain and fury wouldn't let him stop. Everything blurred as Dmitri's fury exploded. Blood splattered across the clinic, on the floor, on the desk, over scattered papers and medical equipment. The air turned stifling, grim, as though the room had become a stage for tragedy. The deaths of Irina and Kirill were unimaginable, yet it had happened. Death came swiftly, and Dmitri in his rage left only chaos in his wake. He fled, hurriedly leaving the scene behind, abandoning lifeless bodies and an unanswered question lingering in the air. What would come after all that had happened? The police arrived at the scene with urgency, investigators stepping into the clinic with eyes full of suspicion and tension. The cold air lingered with the smell of blood, still clinging to the space. Everything was in disarray. Shattered objects lay scattered across the floor, clear signs of a fierce struggle. Blood trails stretched from where Irina and Kirill's bodies lay all the way to the entrance, a sight that sent chills down the spines of everyone present. As they swept the room, one of the investigators quickly discovered a video recording from a security camera outside the clinic. Heart skipped a beat as the footage showed a man exiting the clinic door, hurried and panicked, his hands covered in blood. No further explanation was needed. Dmitri had become the prime suspect. Dmitri was promptly arrested and taken to the police station. His entire body trembled, but his face remained resolute, constantly insisting on his innocence. "I didn't do anything. I didn't kill them," he cried out, his gaze desperate, yet no one believed his words. The investigators knew they had no time to waste. The evidence was compelling. The traces on his body and the security footage spoke volumes. However, Dmitri stubbornly continued to deny everything, even as he was questioned about why he had fled the scene. His statements conflicted with the evidence collected, and with every inconsistency, the police grew more certain that the truth hidden behind his denials would reveal a dark, untold story. As all the evidence was presented, conversations between Dmitri and Irina, affectionate messages between her and Kirill, the trial became not only a criminal case but a confrontation with the deepest pains of human experience. It was a story of betrayal, jealousy, and irreversible loss. After prolonged deliberations and faced with the brutal weight of irrefutable evidence, the court delivered its sentence. Dmitri was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Though his sentence was mitigated slightly by the acknowledgement that his actions were not entirely rational due to blind jealousy, no one could deny that his crime was unforgivable. Questions continued to echo in the public's mind. Could Dmitri find forgiveness for his actions? Could a marriage survive such betrayal? And after all the loss, would Dmitri have a chance to redeem himself? Or would he carry this guilt for the rest of his life? In this storm, Moscow no longer felt like the familiar, prosperous city. It had become a place full of shadows, where love and betrayal, forgiveness and revenge intertwined, forming the backdrop for a tragic, sorrowful story. The case had closed, but its resonance never faded. The deaths of Irina and Kirill were not merely the end of a tragedy, they marked the beginning of an endless path of pain and confusion. Rash decisions made in a moment of lost control had brought irrevocable consequences. Fiery emotions and wounded pride had clouded reason, leading them down a road with no return. They lost everything. And so the story ends, but its aftershocks linger in the hearts of those left behind. The costly lesson about betrayal and trust in relationships is a wound that will not heal easily. Tragedies, though preventable, always loom where emotions overpower reason. Do we ever stop to wonder how a single moment of lost control could change a life forever?